Hey guys, it's AkProFilms, your source for tech tutorials and more. And welcome to this video where we're going to create a 3D intro inside of Motion 5. So let's dive into the creation of this intro right away. Alright, so before we begin, let me show you what we will be creating today. So as you can see, we will cover some advanced concepts such as 3D, camera angles, and lighting effects. So let's open up Motion and create a really unique intro for your YouTube videos or any other project that you might be working on at the moment. So we can either open up Motion through our application drawer here or just performing a simple spotlight search. So when Motion opens, let's go for a blank composition and go for a Motion project template. And so let's go for the preset Broadcast HD 1080, and let's go for a frame rate of 30 frames per second, and a duration of 10 seconds. And now let's just press on Open. So here we go, Motion is opened up with a blank new project. So right off the bat, let's go over to this percent, which is the zooming in, and let's press on that and go to 25%. So the next part is creating a floor and actually creating the 3D elements for our intro. Now the floor is essential to this intro because it provides the structure for where the text is going to sit and where the lighting is going to reflect off of. So now let's go down to this rectangle tool and press on that, and let's create a decent size rectangle that covers our entire canvas. Here's our rectangle, and let's go to the inspector and let's go to the properties tab. And then let's go to the rotation, and on our X rotation, let's go to 90. So it just looks like a blank line right in the center of our project, but that is what it looks like in 2 dimensions. So now let's switch it to 3D by going to create a camera and switch that to 3D. And it looks just the same as it was in 2D because we haven't adjusted anything yet. So now let's go over to the camera controls, which is the upper right hand side of Motion, and let's go for the orbit camera. So there we go. Now we see that our camera is being rotated in 3-dimensional space. There we go. And that is the basic part for creating the floor inside of Motion. So now let's go back to our properties and let's go to the scale and let's go up to about 800. And so that will create the floor and it'll extend it out by using that scale property. So let's go to our position again and let's go to the X, let's zero that out. Let's go for our Y and zero that out as well. And let's go for the rotation. We have those zeroed out, which is what we want. There we go. Now let's move the camera to around the edge of this floor so we have the maximum area to work with. So let's dolly out our camera so we can see the whole floor. And let's pan the camera around. Let's orbit the camera around a little bit more. And let's pan it again. And let's dolly back in. So moving on up towards the edge of our floor, now we have a lot more area to work with. We can also dolly in a little bit more if we would like to. So let's go about to there, and now we are all set up for creating our lighting. Lighting is also a key component in this intro because it provides some perspective to the whole project. So let's create the lights. So over here next to the create a camera button, we see the create a light button. So let's press on that. And we can see we have our controls right here. So the green arrow indicates in our Y direction, our blue is in the Z direction, and the red is in the X direction. So when we move it up, let's move it up, and let's also on the Z, let's bring that closer to us. So just go like this, and we can see that the light is coming toward us, which we would like. And we can also see that we have the red handle, and let's move that over to the edge. So there we go, we have one of our lights, and let's rename that to light left. There we go. So now let's duplicate that by pressing Command D on our keyboard, and let's rename that to light right, since this will be on the right side of the canvas. So click on your light right and move the red handle over to the right hand side. As you can see, it's a little boring right now because it's really bright over here and then it gets really dim back here. So let's add some color to the lights. So on our light left, let's go to our light and light controls and let's change the color to a cyan color. And then on the light right, let's change the color into a darker blue. So it fades from a nice bright blue to a little darker blue. And that has a really nice effect. So we can also move our camera and orbit it down a little bit. We can see that those lights are staying in the position that we would like. So now it's time to go into our next step, which is creating the text and making it 3D. Another key component in this intro is the text. So let's go down to the text tool and press on that and then click on our canvas to add some text. So now you can write whatever you want, but I'm going to write AkProFilms since that is what the channel name is. Now down here we can edit the text and all of its properties over here, but let's go and click on the text and bring it out of the floor group. So while we're at it, organization is a key part in creating an intro or any other project in Motion, so you can just stay organized with what layer is what. So on the text, rename that to text, and on our rectangle, rename that group to floor. Now with our text, now drag that under our lights in our camera and make sure it's above the floor. Now there we go. So let's click on our text and we can see our movement controls again. So let's bring that up on the Y direction, bring it forward or towards us, and let's move it on the X direction and bring it down too. We can see it's above the lights, or it's in front of the lights, so let's bring that back, and we can see that it's being affected by the lights now. Now let's go back over to our text in our format and let's increase the size of our text. So that looks about right, so click on your text again, and on the X movement controls, bring that towards the center of the workspace here. And make sure that it's not colliding with the floor like this, but sitting right on top of it. Now let's go to the view controls, which is in the top right. Click on that until we see the two view controls. So we have our active camera and we have our right angle. So switch that to perspective view. Perspective view is just like the active camera, but it doesn't mess up your actual camera angle. So orbit the camera around and pan it until you are satisfied with where it is. And right there is about where I would like it. So with the perspective view turned on, we can see that the text is rotated a little bit to the back. So click on your text, go to Properties, and Transform, go to your Rotation, and then zero out all these values. Zero out the X rotation and the Y direction, and also the Z rotation. So we have our rotation all set to 0 degrees. So it looks a little weird now with the active camera, but we can easily fix that by orbiting the camera around, then panning the camera a little bit, and dollying in to get the desired shot, or the opening shot. So there we go. We have our basic text all set up in three-dimensional space on top of our floor, which is affected by the lighting. Now the text has to be in 3D too, so we have to click on our text, press L on the keyboard, which replicates it, or you can also go to the help menu and type in replicate, and it shows that up in the menu system, which is really nice. So when we replicate it, click on the replicator and go to the shape and press line. So it's just going to create a line of replicators. Motion doesn't have built-in text extrusion, so what we can do is add replicators that go in the Z direction. So go to your start point and zero that out. Make sure you're clicking on that and press 0. I don't know why it's being a little picky, but let's click on that again. And let's go down to 0, and there we go. And then on your endpoint, go to 0, and there we go. It looks like it's at its initial position, but we want to configure in 3D, so go down to the 3D option and press on the check mark right there. So we check that off in 3D, so let's go to our start point, let's go to Z, and go to -75. So there we go. Now our text is going back in 3D. So you probably can't differentiate between the 3D yet, so let's go on our text, and let's go to the text style, and let's add an outline. So now let's change it from that red color to a black color. So it's a little darker and we can differentiate between the 3D text. We can also increase the width so we can see it a little better, and that will satisfy. Perfect. Now go back to your replicator, and here's a little tip of advice. So when you're editing, bring down the points to about 1 so you can have a lot faster editing. And when you're going to render, bring up the points to about 75 so you can have a nice high quality 3D text render. So 75 will look more like 3D text, but it's going to be really laggy inside of Motion, as you can expect, because it has to render all of these replicators. So just bring that down while we're editing, so we can have the maximum performance. So now let's animate the camera, and then we're off to rendering the intro. Now, one of the last parts about this intro is animating the camera. This is probably one of the most exciting parts because you get to choose what angles you want for your intro. So let's animate the camera. So first, let's minimize our text layer group and our floor layer group, and make sure we're clicking on the camera. So for the camera animations, we're going to split that up into 3-second intervals. So on the 3-second mark, go to the edit menu and press split, and go to the 6-second mark and go to edit and split. And so these will specify our 3 different types of angles. So on camera, rename that to shot 1. And for camera 1, let's rename that to shot 2. And for camera 1, let's rename that to shot 3. Alright, so let's jump on over to shot number 1 and let's animate the camera. So right off the bat, let's choose our ending position. So hop on over to 2 seconds and 29 frames and specify the ending shot. So we can orbit, dolly, and pan the camera around to the desired position, and this will be the desired position that I would choose for the intro. You can go as crazy as you want for this, so be as creative as you want as well. So then go to the beginning of your project, which is 0 seconds, 0 frames, and dolly out the camera, just like this. So I'm going to have the camera start from a far distance away and then pull on over closer to our text. And so then press on the record button and go to 2 seconds and 29 frames again, and then dolly on the camera to your specified ending frame. So this will be the ending frame for my little intro right here. And then hop on over to your shot number 2 at 3 seconds, uncheck the recording option, and then you can move the camera wherever you want. But I'm going to go to the opposite side of the text by orbiting the camera and panning it around, then dollying in a little bit closer, orbiting it down so we have a lower angle, orbiting it down just a little bit more, and then dollying in again. And this will be the ending shot for our shot number 2. So then what we want to do is go to the beginning of shot number 2 and press the record button, and then what we want to do is uncheck the record button, and then for shot number 2, go to the initial position since we have the ending one set, and then go to 5 seconds and 29 frames, press the record button, and then zoom on in to your ending frame there. So there we go. Uncheck the record button again, and let's preview what we have so far. So it dollies in for the first one, and dollies in for the second one. Then for the third shot, I'm going to have a nice pull out on the text. So go on over to 6 seconds, and let's orbit the camera around a little bit and dolly out, and pan the camera around a little bit. And that looks like a nice ending shot for AkProFilms on shot 3. So then what we want to do is go to our beginning point by dollying in, just like this, and press the record button, and then hop on over to about 8 seconds, so we have a little end time where you can see AkProFilms text. Then what we want to do is dolly out until we see all of our text. Once again, you can go as crazy as you want. I'm just going to get it to the look I desire. So there we go. Uncheck the recording button again and let's play what we have so far. So shot number 1, it dollies in. Shot number 2, it dollies in from the other side. For shot number 3, it pulls out to reveal all of our text. So that looks about right. So now let's render this project, put it into our editor, add some music, and we should be done. Finally, the time has come where we can render this project out and then pop it into our editor of choice and add some music. Alright, so now remember when I said about the replicator that it works faster when we only have one point selected when we edit? Well, now it's render time, so let's bump that up to about 65 or 75, as much as you think your computer can handle, and there we go, we can see our text has some 3D replicator behind it to make it look 3D. So now let's render this project out since we have the replicator properties all set up and ready to go. So then at the top of the menu bar, go to the share option and press export movie. And then we can set some settings here, but let's just leave them at their default or at these settings right here, and then press on the next button. And then we can choose our desired saving location. I'm just going to save it on the desktop in sake of time, and so let's just pop it there and let's save as 3D text intro. And then let's press on save and let's let it save out. So there we go, our intro is saved and rendered. So the time might be different on your machine, it depends on the specs of your computer, but when it's rendered it'll bring up the QuickTime file and we can just see what we have created. So we have created a nice 3D intro inside of Motion 5 and it looks pretty nice. Alright, so now it's time to throw this into our editor of choice and add some music to this intro. Now we're on to our final steps of creating this intro and just adding some final touches that'll make this intro look a little better. So after we rendered out the project and saved it to our destination folder, let's go to File, Save, and then we can close out of Motion. And then we can see our project has been saved to wherever we save it. So then open up your editor of choice. For instance, I'm using Final Cut Pro, and let's just pop in our intro into the media library. Just grab our intro and drag it in. Grab our intro and drag it into the timeline. And then let's add some quick effects just to make it look a little better. So let's add a cross dissolve to either side just to make it fade in the beginning and the end, just to wrap up the whole intro in a nice package. And then let's add a couple quick effects. I'll just paste the effects I already added. You can tweak them as much as you would like. And there we go, I just added some bokeh random effects, which make it look a little nicer. So now it's just time to add some of the music that'll wrap this into a nice intro that you can use in your projects that you might be working on at the moment. Now we added some cool effects to make the intro look a little better, but now let's add some music. So right away, you might notice JQualk on SoundCloud. I've used some of his pieces in my recent videos, and I'd highly recommend to check his SoundCloud user out. So he has some cool pieces like this that you can use in your own videos and all of that, and they sound really nice. I've just used a couple of them in my recent videos that you should go and check out as well. So right off the bat, I'm going to download this piece of music, No Matter Where by JQualk on SoundCloud, and download this track, and it'll be brought right into the downloads folder. Now I can close out of Safari and we can find that piece. So you can see it's right here, No Matter Where, the MP3. And then let's go split up the clip so we have a more electronic sound. So let's scrub through and find the right spot. So right there sounds pretty good. So let's split the clip right there. And let's delete this section right here and move our audio to the beginning of the clip. Now let's preview what we have so far. We can just fade in a little bit too. So let's trim that up a little bit. There we go. So there we go. We can see that audio adds a lot to the intro and makes it look a lot better. So I'd highly recommend to go check out JQualk on SoundCloud. A link will be in the description, and I'd highly recommend to go download some of his pieces. So now let's quickly render this project out so we have it that we can use in our videos. So then click on the next button. Let's save it to the desktop and press and type in 3D text intro final. And there we go. We have our project and it'll render out into a nice new QuickTime file that we can throw in to our videos that we would be working on at the moment. So we can close out a Final Cut and let's see what the intro looks like now that it is final. So there we go, there's the intro that we created. We added the audio, added the effects, and did all of the manual work inside of Motion to come out with this polished result. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video where we made a 3D intro inside of Motion 5, threw it into our editing software, and added some effects and music just to polish it up so we can use it in our own projects at the moment. Thanks again guys for sticking through this whole tutorial. Knew it was long, so if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments, or just any general questions, leave them below as well. In addition, the project files will be on my website linked below, as well as JQualk's SoundCloud profile, so you can download some of his great music. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Have a great rest of your day.